Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
What's the order here? Willowwood first.
Good evening. Welcome to the March 23rd Planning Board meeting. First on the agenda is Willowwood Country Club. On the agenda for amended site plan. Mike, I believe you had some comments?
I do. Applicant added a 14-station sporting clay range to the existing Willowwood Country Club. The previous application was approved as a country club. Country clubs are permitted conditional uses in the R residential zone. This happened way back when, long before me. Anyway, applicant added quiet zone signs where the trail is close to the houses. Variances were granted for the following and are noted on the plat. 502 parking spaces required, 80 proposed, 422 variance. 10 by 20 parking spaces are required, 9 by 18 proposed. Non-permanently improved parking space, they're allowed to keep the gravel in the parking area. The sound barriers only proposed at station 4 and 12 and improved on 13 and 14. Wouldn't sound barriers be helpful at every station? Is there a way to engineer a berm or some vegetation to help muffle the noise? Why are the sound barriers at the trap field no longer existing down at the bottom where you guys have the existing? They are on the currently approved site plan. Every part of the previously approved site plan must be maintained or the site plan approval becomes null and void. Please replace the sound barriers or submit to the board for the removal of the barriers.
Thank you, Mike. Rich?
Good evening. Application for an amended site plan, as Mike mentioned already. Applicant has acknowledged comments with regards to Environmental Conservation Board permits, New York State DEC stormwater permit from construction activities. They may be required to supply a stormwater maintenance agreement, and public performance bond might be needed along with engineering fee is needed at least for the erosion and sediment control of stormwater management practices. Detailed comments, there's only about 4 of them. Plantings should be verified by the wetlands inspector. All plantings installed, Town of Carmel Town Code. The rain garden calculations must be provided and must meet New York State DEC criteria for design. And the wetland limits must be shown on the drawing, which I believe they were. I apologize for leaving that one in there. So that's what I got for you.
Thank you, Rich. And Pat?
So the primary issue with this, if you remember, the siting issues were addressed previously, the tree removal issues were addressed previously, and we're really left, now that we're post-zoning board, with the noise impact issues that you've heard about. So Insight gave you some responses to how they're amplifying, no pun intended, the noise mitigation measures. 2 of the issues related to rotating the orientation of 2 of the stations. And I recall a conversation that those stations are fairly mobile, that you have the ability to move them. So the question simply becomes, how permanent is that? Could they be unoriented in the favorable direction? So that's sort of a question. Apparently there was a noise consultant that was involved in some of the work you've done. It would be useful to see some of that material if that's something that could be shared. Is there a report, or is there something that we could look at? The issue really, the issue really is, are these noise barriers the best technique? What is the noise level we're dealing with? Is it excessive or not? And are there other methods that should be utilized? Mike indicated berms. Should we be looking at additional landscaping? Really, what is the impact? And we have a noise ordinance that provides context with specific decibel levels. So I'm certain your noise consultant was aware of that when they put this, when they were providing guidance to you. So if that information could be shared with us, that's helpful. And if it can't be, like anything else, we could get our own noise consultant to review these issues if you think they're that significant and need to be addressed. So those are my comments, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Pat. Before we go any further, I'd like to introduce John Nukajovic. He's new to our planning board as of tonight. This evening's his first meeting. So, John, welcome. Good luck to you. Look forward to working with you.
Thanks.
George and team, can I ask you if you would, there are a couple of new board members, can you take, I don't know, whatever you need, somewhere less than 5 minutes, and take us through the project. I'm familiar with it, George, as you know, I've been out to the property,
Right.
I've toured the property, actually with Ray a while ago. Many of us been out to the property, Bob and Anthony. But take us through why this is a concern of the towns right now and yourselves,
Right.
please.
Rich is going to, I think, put up the plans right now, and we'll just give him a second to do that. Yeah.
And please introduce yourself when you, thank you.
So good evening. For your record, my name is Richard Williams. I'm with Insight Engineering. I have Mr. George Calcagnini with Willowwood Country Club and Mr. Charles Martabano of Counsel to the Country Club. So just to recap, we're before you for an amended site plan approval for a sporting clay course consisting of 14 stations. Just to go through brief history, Willowwood Country Club was founded in 1955 with 11 acres. In 1981, the club expanded with the purchase of an additional 75 acres to its current 86-acre total. 1983, the Appellate Division of the Supreme Court permitted Willowwood as a permitted conditional use. That's what you heard Mr. Carnazzo reference a few minutes ago. 1991 and 2000, we had site plan approvals for existing club infrastructure. So the property itself is this area here. We derive our access off of Union Valley Road. You come in via gravel access road to the existing club, which is developed here. North is up on this page. On the east side of the property, you have a New York State DEC wetland. We have identified the 100-foot adjacent area and 100-foot town of Carmel regulated wetland buffer on the plan. There is an existing trap field here with 2 noise barriers. 2 of the noise barriers have come down. Mr. Carnazzo alluded to that. We are reconstructing them as we speak. So we are not going to seek to have them removed from the site plan. We're going to rebuild them in accordance with the originally approved site plan. We also have a 5-stand course here and our existing clubhouse. What you see in gray is the wooded areas of the property. In 2016, a tree harvesting permit was obtained to clear these areas in white. And then around those areas, a sporting clay course was built. What you see highlighted in yellow is the actual trail. Along the trail, we have 14 stations. Sporting clays is a sport where you pull up to a station. There is a wooden cage that you step into. At each station, 3 targets are released, and you shoot the 3 targets in order and move on to the next station. And I am oversimplifying that. If you want more information, George will be happy to fill you in. The improvements that we're seeking as part of this amended site plan, we do have some areas of millings that we're going to be adding to stabilize some of the existing trails. We do have drainage improvements throughout the trails. We're going to be adding some riprap swales. As you mentioned, we're also going to be putting in some rain gardens for stormwater treatment. That was a brief
Rich,
overview.
thank you. I think that brings some people up to speed.
Just
Bob?
one question, can you point out on the map the newer stations, which I think caused you to have to come in to begin with?
It's actually the trail in yellow, which has 14 stations spread throughout. So station 1, 2, 3, 4, and then as we work around, the final stations end at 13 and 14 here.
Okay, so was it 13 and 14? were
It
the
was
ones-
the entire course. It was the sporting clay course itself.
I was under the impression that many of the stations on the course were existing, and others had a few, maybe 1 or 2, I don't know, had been added.
The-
Is that wrong?
The previous site plan approval did not show the sporting clay course.
There was shooting up there that was done, but it was not a formal course. There was no
Okay, I got it,
regimented,
I got it.
formalized.
Okay.
There was no formal sporting clays course originally. There was shooting up there, but there was no formal course. These machines are different than the trap machines down here, which are big and bulky and never move. The sporting clays courses are on carts, and they're made to be moved so that we'd like to move them every 2 weeks so that we can train for different types of targets. Willowwood is a very small club in the sphere of sporting clays, but Willowwood has become a very significant training ground for serious competitive shooters. We've attracted a lot of people who are very intently interested in the sport. I myself am a national delegate to the governing body of the sport, the nationally, and I'm president of the New York State Association. We have a lot of competitive shooters, and this is an important training facility, and it's a real plus to the community. Sporting clays shooters need to constantly have different targets to expand their abilities, because you have to immediately assess trajectories and leads and different techniques, and that's why Willowwood is important.
So just to bring that back to the site plan, each station, as identified on our site plan, has what we've identified as a field of fire, and this goes back to, can we just start rotating things around? The answer is no. There's safety concerns on the course that we have to be aware of, making sure stations don't crisscross. There's safety instructors throughout the site that help set up the site, as George discussed. So what we've identified for each station on the site plans is the area where that station will aim and fire towards. The three target throwers that George was referring to, those are what's moved within that field of fire. So each station stays aiming in the same direction, aiming at the same place. They just orientate how the discs are going to come to help with their training.
Would you flip that over? I just have a question for you. So at the top, you have that little dark gray section that comes out, kind of looks like a driveway almost out of the property? That, yeah. Is that part of your property?
Yes.
It is.
Okay. So would you show us where the nearest houses are? Okay. And just one? I mean, are there more?
There's one house here
Okay.
and one house there.
And then,
And point to the nearest station.
The nearest
Just for the
stations
board.
are,
Okay,
Here.
so how
So,
far,
the
what
closest
station
station to
is
the
that
house,
that you're pointing to?
that is
14.
station 14.
Okay, and how far is 14, if you can estimate, to the nearest house?
Over 420 feet and probably closer to 500 feet.
It's 500 feet, I believe, to the property line, and then whatever it is from the property line to the house.
and then Heritage Hills is north of that?
No.
Heritage Hills is
south.
actually to the south, right
Yeah.
down where my hand is.
Right, we got turned around. Okay.
If I can address something Mr. Carnazza indicated, I would be glad to sit down with you and discuss additional sound barriers, if that's what you're getting at. We'd be happy to get your input and add any additional barriers that are feasible to the site plan. And although I don't have a report to give you now, I can certainly get one.
You would want to sit down with us and discuss it for the board. That would be the best thing, Pat, Rich, and I
Yes.
together, so that this way we can come up with, or
Be
see if there's
perfectly-
anything that could be done, because there's no
In
sense.
terms of berm, we do have earth that's going to be brought in here by this curve down from 14, and there is a berm and plantings shown on that. And if you want that bigger, you tell us, and we'll make it so.
And when Craig and I came out quite a while ago, just remind the board, at 13 and 14, what are the sound attenuation?
There's a
that you do?
sound barrier that is 10 feet long, 12 feet high, directly behind the shooter, and that is made with 2x6s with overlapping boards, so that there can be no sound penetration through that. One of the additional mitigations is that those stations will then have, call it wings, sidewalls put on, and a roof over top to enhance the noise mitigation of that. That's at 13 and 14.
Are there, maybe it's an exaggeration, but like a recording studio? I know your barriers are made out of wood. Is there something that does, I think most of what we're talking about here is going to boil down to acoustics and sound, I believe. Is there a better product for sound attenuation than wood?
I think the heart of all this comes to is we are working with a noise expert. We heard loud and clear that, we're going to be asked to share our plan with you. When we come back next time, we'll have more information. We'll probably have a report that we can share with you to help substantiate noise levels, to give the board a little bit more background and comfort level as to where we're headed. And I think that'll help answer a lot of the questions on noise.
Doing your due diligence there would be beneficial to everybody.
I think what Craig's trying to say is instead of using a solid, hard surface, is there a waffle, honeycomb, something
Exactly, Mike.
that can absorb it as opposed to deflecting it and ricocheting it all over the place? Because
Yeah. That makes sense to me.
that would
but-
help. I mean, again, I don't know if there's something for outside, I'm just speaking.
That was my thought, Mike.
What are the hours of operation?
In the winter hours, 10 to 5, in the summer hours, 10 to 6.
7 days a week, 5
No.
days a week?
No, it's, we're open Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and if Monday is a holiday, one of those, if it falls on it, if everybody's got off on the Monday,
Right.
we
Right.
open.
Is this open to the public, or
No,
is it?
it's a private
It's a
club.
private club, okay. And approximately how many members do you think are going to use this?
Well, when we started this whole process, we had counted up, we were at 202. COVID has kind of wrecked things a little, and we're building back up, so no more than, we have indicated we're going to cap ourselves at 225, because it's a private club,
Yeah.
and this course is designed mostly for real people who are
Serious shooters,
involved
yeah.
in the competitive fields.
Yeah.
We do have 4 machines at each station, and 2 of the machines are going to be high-level competition targets. In other words, very difficult targets. But the other 2 machines are going to be for the recreational shooter, because people will get discouraged too quickly if they're shooting competition targets. So, and to help bring along the people who are coming in, you can't just put, a kid who's 16 and never really shot before and have them shoot competition targets. And we do, again, before COVID, we had a youth team, and in fact, one of our youth team members ended up with a shooting scholarship to the University of Alabama. So COVID wrecked a lot of things, but it kind of wrecked our youth team, which we intend to get going again at some point. So there are more applications than the competitive shooter, but we're primarily a club of competitive shooters.
And the parking? Because this is the first time I've seen this site, so parking is not an issue.
We did a survey, it's been a while, but I believe, Rich, do you remember the maximum number we ever had in the parking lot? Our busiest time, I don't think it was more than, 36 or 37 people in the parking lot. I don't remember that exact number, but it was somewhere around there. We've never, ever had any problems with parking.
But Vicki, your point is fair, because when we reviewed this in 2020, 2019, parking was an issue, and I believe that's why you went to the zoning board, right?
That's
So
correct.
They have worked with the zoning.
And we did get our variance down.
Yep.
Clarification, and I'm sorry if I'm being repetitive on this, but I'm just trying to drive what I'm seeing with my memory when I visited the course. Stations 13 and 14, are they in the same location as they were back when the original application
Yes,
came in?
the only station that was changed was 9, and that was moved
Right here.
down to shoot in a more or less southerly zone into the hillside. I don't know if you can tell from that distance, but there's a hill here, so the shots will be going into the hillside, which will absorb the sound, and be going away from the residences on Union Valley. And one of the things we've learned is noise from guns is directional, so if you're behind the gun, it's a lot quieter than in front of the gun.
Okay, thank you.
Rich, did you use 225 for the parking calculation?
I'm sorry, Mike?
Did you use 225 members for the parking calculation?
We actually, I think, used 250 at the time.
That's fine. I just want to
Yeah.
make sure you have enough, because you can be less, you can't be more.
Now, we had based the original number on 250 member households with 502 spaces being required. Just not to go back in a lot of history, but the country club section of the parking requirements, I believe it's 2 per space plus 1 per employee, which, really kind of sets up more for a country club where you're going to play golf, but the family's going maybe to the swimming pool, not a facility such as this. We have shown parking on the plan. There is more than enough parking on this site. And we even did additional planning for if there were ever to be an event where we could where we could use existing lawn areas to supplement parking to make sure we're not impacting the access drive or the community. And that was all subject to the ZBA variance.
Any other questions from the board?
No, I'm good.
If not, I think the time and attention you can put into the acoustics would be well spent.
Okay. Does the board want us to come back one more time with that report for discussion, or do we want to, I think our next step would be a public hearing.
I think we need to discuss it first.
You need to give me stormwater stuff and all that information, so get that information in here, at least site plan wise, so the board can talk about the other issues.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good discussion. Rich, you do have Rich's comments. You'll get Rich's comments, right? Okay. Rich, they're going to make sure they're going to reach out to you tomorrow to get your comments.
Yeah, I mean, Rose will send all the comments to him, so we'll go from there.
Next on the agenda is 910 South Lake Boulevard, amended site plan. Good evening. Mike?
Yeah, the applicant now proposes to remove the garage and single-room occupancy, it was a boarding house, and rebuild a 3-story, 24-room boutique hotel. The use is a permitted use in the scheduled district regulations, however, the definition requires 50 or more rooms, which this does not, variance is required. Copy of the plan should be reviewed by the fire department for the turning radii, and the location of the Siamese, which is a fire department connection, they're probably gonna want it down by the front of the building. Gave the definition of a hotel. Why is there no drawing for the basement or the 3rd floor? I don't understand how you're coming up with 35 feet for the height of the building at Route 6 end side. If you look, your lowest number starts pretty high up. I don't know if we're missing grade or what, but we'll talk about that. Provide a parking calculation, zoning table, and all setback dimensions. Variances appear to be necessary, and these are the variances from last time. I don't know if they're different. I need the numbers to be able to tell you what you need. How much fill will be removed or added? Will there be blasting on the project? The architectural consultant needs to be involved in this process. This is going to be the first big development in that area, so it's something that's going to be like our benchmark. And project needs to be referred to the ECB as we get closer to accepting the application, kind of.
Thank you, Mike. Rich?
So Mike gave you the rundown of what this is. It's a hotel with 24-room boutique hotel. The big picture here is the applicant, as we stated in the past, there are New York State DOT requirements needed for this that they have to address. That may take some time. New York City DEP for wastewater flows in a designated Main Street or downtown area. So there's the whole issue with regards to getting a SWIP from the New York City DEP. And though I didn't put it on it, there's the Putnam County referral to the 239N? 239N referral to Putnam County Planning. A lot of the comments that I had in the last time, only 1 or 2 were addressed, so they're still there. So, I mean, this is, needs some work yet on planning, on the site plan work.
Thank you, Rich. Pat?
So the footprint of the proposal that's before you now, the change from the prior plan to the current plan is very similar. It looks like the same essential configuration on the site. So a couple of things. The primary issue relates to the nature of the hotel. So a hotel in this location could be a wonderful thing for us, depending on how that hotel operates. It has the potential of being just the opposite in that location if it's not operated in a certain way. So understanding the operation of the hotel is critical. Number one, is it a franchise? Is it a Sheraton, or is it a local non-affiliated kind of a hotel? Understanding that's important. How it operates is important. So there's space in the building for conference centers and conference space. Is that used by only people in the hotel, or can you rent out that space? In other words, it's being used separately than the people that are going to the hotel. the operational aspects of that are significant. The hotel industry is very well understood by the people that run that industry. So I have no doubt that Michael has done some marketing assessment with respect to that. So sharing that with us would be helpful. Again, understanding the nature of the hotel is critical to us. Number of employees that operate at the facility, things like that. Mike indicated there would still be a number of variances, as we saw with the last building. The difference is this is not an apartment building like the last building. This is a publicly accessible hotel. So the site would be used differently. It's not going to be used by residents who go there every day. It's going to be used by strangers who've never been there before. So for example, on the far side, out on one way in, one way out. If you could flip to the site plan, Michael, the primary entrance is in the back of the building. Ordinarily, when you go to a hotel, you kind of park your car at the entrance, you go and you get your key,
So
and then
the
you go
back
park
of the
it.
building here is on 6, as compared to the front of the building's on
Oh,
6N?
That's correct. So it's the front of the building's face, but functionally, you drive around to the back and you go in the back of the building. So you ordinarily park your car at that door, get your key, and then go park your car somewhere else. Because of the one way in, one way out, if you did that, no one else is getting in or out. The car would block in or out traffic. So there's a design issue that needs to be sort of worked out with respect to the site, because it's a hotel, it's not an apartment building anymore. So there are site planning issues to deal with. As we talked about originally, there's grading issues. Those are steep driveways in and out, maybe okay for an apartment building, less optimum for a hotel. So those things need to be looked at a little more carefully now that we're shifting to a hotel. It's a fundamentally different project. They did address issues of landscaping and so forth, but details about lighting, signage, now it's a lot different. And as Mike indicated, the architecture of this is going to be a benchmark for us. So we really need to have our consultant engage with Michael to help us make sure that the building is designed appropriately. And that goes back to if this is, in fact, Holiday Inn's model, and they have no flexibility because it's Holiday Inn's model, and the franchisee must do what they tell them and not what we want, that's an issue for us. So that's what I'm talking about in terms of understanding the nature of the hotel. So that's basically my comments on it.
It's a very difficult piece of property to develop. I understand why you want to do it there with the lake. Before I ask the board for any comments, why don't you update us? Tell us what you plan on doing, why you're doing it, anything you can share about the business plan at this point, so on.
Sure. So my name is Michael Mastrogiacomo. I'm the design engineer for the project. What my client has decided, and going back and forth and looking at things, he does own a couple of hotels down in Florida, so he has the experience. So we're looking to do a hotel here instead of a multifamily use, since it's more allowed by the code. We do have a bunch of variances still because of the tight nature of the lot. What we're doing is we're not going to have like a Sheraton or a Marriott or any of that. It'll be, he will actually own it. So it'll be, like a mom and pop boutique hotel. On the front elevation, we're playing with names. I wrote Lake Mayapack, hotel, trying to keep it more with the town, keep it more still hometowny. Again, we have the parking spaces at the rear. We have the 2 driveways for the ingress and egress. We have some terraced walls to soften the front, all landscaping in between the walls, between the property line on the wall, and some grass up here to try to soften the amount of walls we have in order to create that average grade, and to catch the grade because of the grade differential in elevation from the front to back. All the drainage still is in the back. We're still hooking up. We still have a lot of work to do, but the biggest thing is to come here and get some direction from the board, so then I could go back and answer staff's comments and continue with DEP, because I put them on pause since we've changed from residential to a hotel. Just to give you an idea. So along 6N, as you're driving by, you'll see the rear of the building. There's terraces off of the apartments at the corners. This is the signage that I call it. It's embedded in the wall. It's non-illuminated. We're going to have some uplighting to shine up and illuminate the sign, so then you know what it is.
So that'd be, if you come up the hill from 6N, that would be what you're looking at?
Yes, yes. And then we also have some wall sconces just to give a little illumination against the building. This is the actual front of the building at the parking lot area where you enter. So this balcony basically extends further forward to create a covered area so then people could go into the lobby. And then along each driveway, again, we have some, on the upper levels, we have some balconies. I provided some wall sconces to illuminate the driveway, so it's not a dark alley. You're driving up, you can actually see, and the same thing with going down. And then the ground floor basically has, as you come in off the rear parking area, there's a small lounge area with like an electric fireplace, so then anybody who's staying here can sit down, read, hang out. This will be like a continental breakfast area, a small office area for the front desk to sign in, and then this will be a conference/dining area, so people, staying here can eat here, they can come and sit down with their family. This room could be rented out if they provide a function. Let's say I'm part of the New York Association of Professional Land Surveyors. If they want to have some sort of conference here, there's a foldable wall that could close with the hope then, who's attending that conference will also stay at the hotel and then be able to also go to the restaurants around and actually enjoy the town.
So is there a full working kitchen that if residents of the town wanted to go there for dinner, they could, or is it just for residents?
No, we're not having a full breakfast, lunch, and dinner. A little continental breakfast, get some pastries and bread
dinner,
from the local shops, maybe make some scrambled eggs, bacon, like light stuff. Would be a tiny kitchen in the basement just for that kind of food. We're hoping to promote that anybody who stays here could actually go to Trattoria Say or, any of the other restaurants around.
Is there a bar area?
We've been toying around with the idea that would require, a state liquor license.
Right.
But again, we're still toying with that idea. We're not too sure.
Okay.
Can you describe the clientele that you're trying to attract? What type of stays in terms of duration?
These are not going to be, 3-hour stays. This is going to be, daily rates. So we're hoping to attract people that want to come and spend a long weekend or stay a week or coming up, people visiting family that live in the area that are going to stay a couple of weeks. Things of that nature, not a short stay.
Is there a maximum?
Well, wedding bookings, especially with LeBron, we get together with them and then,
Yeah.
Will there be a maximum duration?
that we haven't gotten into that whole part of it.
So there's 24 rooms. How big are they? Single, king
Well,
size?
what we've done is we've made it so then there's certain ones that are just singles, there's certain that have shared rooms, so then
Oh,
there's a door
connecting
between them
rooms.
that you can open and be able to use if you need 2 bedrooms or whatever. So there's flexibility with the bathrooms and all that.
But they're all basically the same room size. There's no suites or anything like that?
No,
right?
no, there's no suites like that.
And is there a season or it's open all year long?
I'm sorry?
Is it seasonal or open all year long?
No, this will be open all year. This will be open all year.
And how many employees do you propose having on site?
I believe we were talking between 6 and 10, somewhere in there. Again, the owner's still going through all the numbers to see exactly how much staff he needs. In the basement area, we're gonna have the laundry room to get the sheets in, to clean the sheets, and that'll be like the manager's office down there. So anything functioning for the actual the hotel will be down in the basement. That way it frees up the 3 floors for everybody to use it.
You were saying the owner operates other hotels down south?
He's got 1 or 2 hotels in Florida.
Could you provide us that information?
Yeah, we
Where
could
they
get
are,
you-
the names,
Sure.
so we could do a little research on them. Please.
And has he,
Go ahead.
has he come up with a price point where he's thinking of marketing the rooms? In other words, are they gonna be low end, middle end, high end?
No, it'll be more like middle to high end, somewhere in there. We don't want to attract, people that want to come in for a couple hours or anything
What
like
would
that.
or maybe you have to ask this question, what would the owner assimilate this hotel to? Would it be to a,
Almost like, oh my God,
like a
it's like
Marriott Courtyard?
Yeah, like a Marriott
or,
Courtyard, like a nice boutique type motel. So a hotel, sorry. So something in that terms there.
I mean, you have several businesses in the area between Villa Barone and Mayapack, Putnam Golf Course and Mayapack that all have wedding venues and events throughout the year.
Right.
I'm sure they would be interested in knowing about this. It's just such a difficult piece of property to develop.
Can
I
I,
remember when it first came up, there was the multi-use multifamily, and that driveway or the parking, the drop-off there.
Right.
Is that, I mean, it's still the same piece of property. How's it
still
going
the
to
s-
change with it being a hotel?
Well, because at the front on 6N, instead of having that drop-off, originally we were thinking of having parking underneath. We were trying to get parking in order for a residential use, which is a lot harder to do,
Yeah, more,
especially on
yeah.
a small piece of property. So because now it's a hotel, you're not having somebody there 365 days a year living there.
Right.
You know, but probably 2 weeks max, somebody will be staying, maybe 4 if they're staying to visit their grandkids or something like that.
When they're building a house or something? yeah.
Right, exactly. So, you know, it's
And
a little bit
I'm
more
not sure
short-term.
if we mentioned, but in terms of your list, Mike, on who to check, DOT will now have a different perspective on this, given the change of use. So those access driveways may not be suitable in their mind for a hotel, don't know. You need to
Right.
talk to them.
what was your economic thinking behind switching from multi-use to hotel? What led you there?
The client, I'd have to ask the client that. Unfortunately, he's away on business. He was trying to get back tonight, but he didn't make it. So that's something he could answer. I can't really answer that.
How many parking spaces are you proposing?
We have 28 spaces,
And it's
28,
24
28 parking
rooms?
spaces.
24 rooms,
24
right?
rooms.
But then 10 employees, approximately.
Well, yeah, between 6 and 10. We're not 100% sure. That's what we're working out.
So we're tight on the parking then.
A little tight on the parking.
And because it's a change now to a hotel, anything with, emergency vehicles, or is there any change that has to be made for that? I mean, it was a residential building, so they had the egress and all that for the emergency stuff. Does that change now with being a hotel?
Building-wise, are you talking about?
Well, for emergencies, like fire and police department,
But are you talking about the building or for the parking lot?
the parking.
Parking, yeah, I wrote that that was my first
Yeah.
comment.
Oh, okay.
Have the fire
Thanks.
department check this for all the radii, make sure they can get through.
Gotcha.
And access the building properly, tell us where they're gonna put the connection for the sprinkler system.
Yeah,
Because they're gonna have
great.
to have a sprinkler in there.
Thanks,
Vicki,
Mike.
now it's got a commercial kitchen in it, so the interior of the building's going to be operated a little bit differently.
Yeah, that was my concern, yeah, okay.
I noticed the drawings that we got, I don't believe we were provided with the lower level, the basement, where you said the cooking and the office would be.
Right, no, we're still developing the basement, and there's really nothing at the top. We're making it all roof. That way, we try to deter anybody from going up there and doing anything silly. So we're just, the basement, again, I'm still working on the drawings, the layout, that small kitchenette area, and the storage areas and everything for the hotel.
So there'll be no access to the roof except fire department?
Correct.
Perfect, good.
Correct.
Because when we spoke the first time, we weren't sure, I remember we were talking about that.
We were talking about that, but then I said to the client, it's a whole liability issue, which I think nobody wants it, so.
Are there plans for an emergency generator?
Emergency generator, we haven't gotten that far in the whole design yet.
I'm just looking at the site plan too.
Yeah.
I'm wondering where you're gonna put it, that's why.
If we I mean, we have room here to put the emergency generator, and we just have to landscape it, additionally, and make sure we have all the sound.
Is it central air or units in the rooms, do you know?
We were thinking of doing more central air. Like I said, we wanted it to be more of a boutique style,
Yeah.
not just you walk in and go into the
No
window. and-
P-tax.
Yeah, exactly.
No P-tax. If we go something like that, I'd rather do a V-tech unit where it's ducted, where it's nicer, and
Okay.
I hate those grills underneath the windows.
Well, you mentioned you came here tonight to get some comments. I think you have 4 typewritten pages of comments from
Any questions? Yeah.
Pat, Mike, and Rich, and some comments from us.
They went light on me, only 4 pages?
Yeah, I'm sure they could come up with more, but
This is the first go.
I finally hit 2 pages for the first time.
Well, we knew, after speaking, I knew that we were going to get a lot of comments from them. I just wanted to try to get direction from the board to make sure that everybody was okay. There was nothing that really stood out. I mean, we'll get you all the financials and all that, so that way you can see what's
Now,
going
you
on.
heard the concerns of the board.
That's the reason why I wanted to come here, you know.
So,
I don't know if I'll be
couple
back
different
next month,
angles, so.
but definitely the following month we'll be back with a more tighter, you know, presentation. We'll get you more information, enough time for you to review it as well.
I'm sure-
If I could just mention one thing that we haven't talked about, the architecture. I realize we may get the architectural consultant involved, but I'm not getting a New England vibe off of.
I'm sorry?
I'm not getting a New England vibe.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and that's what I would be looking for.
Again, this is the first
Yeah.
round, so, you know, I know there'll be, you know, a few rounds to go through.
Yeah.
We do need to go in front of the zoning board to get a lot of variance as well, so.
Yeah, so you're gonna
I don't know which way the board wants to go with that, if you want us to go there as well as come
Now,
here
we
at the
want
same
to
time.
get this down to a handful of
That's what I
comments and
figured, yeah.
make Mike and Rich and
It's
Pat
good,
comfortable.
it's good that Bob mentioned that, because as you further your design or your vision, you have a little direction.
Right, right.
This way you only go once. You don't keep going back and forth every time something else comes up.
Yeah, that'll be good.
I personally feel the sound of a 24-room boutique hotel in our town is something that's been talked about for many years in
Yeah.
this town.
Especially marketed as a
Exactly.
It's, like I said, it's probably the second, third time, it's a very
really
difficult
neat,
property to develop it, and I hope we can develop it properly and get the business we need. That's why Pat, I think, mentioned the business model. We have to look at the downside of this too and say, okay, you know, 5 years after it didn't work out, okay, now we have this, you know, white elephant, what do we do with it? It's right at the key part of us in town, what do we do with this, you know? And then-
That's when we come back and say, all right, we're changing into a residential use and downsize everything.
Or, you know,
Yeah.
Yeah, what makes this challenging, Mr. Chairman, is again, as I said earlier, that the industry is so well regulated. Hilton can tell you what the occupancy of that building needs to be, what the rate structure is for it to be successful. A boutique hotel, they don't have that. So we need to press you, Mike, to understand that. If that building is only 75% occupied on average, does it fail? Does it have to be 100? Or
Right.
can it not be occupied fully? Because this isn't, you know, this isn't 42nd Street. So it will, the occupancy will vary throughout the year.
I do
Can
see
this sustain
seasonal-
that?
Seasonal occupancy.
Yeah.
Or peak seasons.
there's a lot of company, a lot of traffic, a lot of
Yeah.
things going on in the summertime here, not a lot going on in November, December, January, February, you know,
Well,
so.
I think that's where the venues around here will be able to help as far as with the weddings going on, that there's,
Holiday
you know,
parties.
there's always looking for someplace to.
If you connect with Villa Barone, because, you know,
That's where I got married.
come late winter, you know, when they're February through March, they're having Carnival.
Exactly,
You're gonna have people coming from a long ways looking for a place to stay and not have to, so.
exactly.
Not have to drive drunk.
There is, there is some opportunity.
And as far as the name goes, there used to be hotels here years ago. Maybe you look back at the history and it was a summer place, it was a place to come. So maybe you look up an old name and dust it off and revise it.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Again, we want to have that kind of feel, you know?
Yeah, I think it
Yeah.
would, especially for those of us who've been here a really long time and remember that, so.
Any other comments from anybody? Mike, any other comments? Rich, Pat, Joe, you got any
We've
comments?
got names. We've got Luddington Lodge, Sybil Suites. We've got
There's no sweets, we already went over that.
All right, I think you got a lot of feedback tonight. Thank you. Thank you very much. Good luck.
Great, thanks.
Next on the agenda is Shallow Stream Properties, 145 and 153 Shinnedagan Hill Drive, lot line adjustment. Mike?
Yeah, the applicant proposes to move a lot line to create 2 compliant lots off Shindagan Hill Road. On December 2nd, the ZBA granted the necessary variance. They went over the 20% and over the 20,000 square feet that's allowed to be transferred using the lot line adjustment, but they got the variance. It's noted on the plat. Lot line adjustment is now in the title, so that's good, and all zoning comments have been addressed.
Thank you. Rich?
All engineering comments have been addressed.
And Pat?
As have all planning issues. If you remember, one big lot, one little lot, it's been equalized to be 2 equivalently
Yep.
sized lots.
Any comments from anyone on the board?
If you would just give the board a quick overview again, for, you know, some may have.
supposed to be. The owners were looking to move this property line down to this location. And that's the lot line adjustment. Gives us this configuration. So this becomes a new property line along the stone wall and tie back.
And then what's planned after that?
Probably one more house on lot two.
Okay. One house exists now, and then you'll build a house.
Okay.
We've reviewed this a few times, we've been out to the property. Motion to schedule a public hearing?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to schedule a public hearing.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We're going to hold over the minutes. The minutes will be distributed before the next meeting. With that said, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.